In early 2016, a tragic and haunting discovery unfolded in Xi'an, China. One that would stir outrage, horror, and a lot of unanswered questions. It was the kind of story that sounded almost too disturbing to be true, and yet it was. A woman, 43 years old, was found dead inside an elevator. But not just recently. She had been trapped there, alone, for an entire month. Her name was never released to the public, but she lived in a residential building where she had become familiar to neighbors. According to reports, she was known to have a mental illness. She lived alone on the 15th floor, and while some in the building had noticed she hadn't been around, no one thought to investigate further. But how does someone simply disappear into an elevator and remain missing for 30 days? It all started when the building's maintenance team was called to repair a malfunctioning elevator. 2 workers arrived, shut off the power, and opened one of the elevator's doors. But they didn't check if anyone was inside. Instead, they just assumed it was empty. And with that, they left. No signs, no inspection, no follow-up. They reportedly went on an extended break. It was the Chinese New Year, and the maintenance work was paused. The elevator remained shut down for weeks. Behind that closed metal door, in pitch darkness, with no food or water, was a woman, abandoned and unseen. She screamed, scratched at the walls, possibly pounded on the door. But no one heard. No one came. By the time the workers returned weeks later to continue the repairs, they opened the elevator and were immediately overwhelmed by a terrible smell. And that's when they found her. Her body was severely decomposed. There were scratches on the walls, her hands were bloodied. And what was perhaps most disturbing, investigators believed she was still alive when the power was first shut off. She may have survived for days, possibly even longer, trapped in silence. Authorities opened an investigation. The maintenance workers were detained for gross negligence, but many were quick to point fingers at the system. How could a whole building, a whole management company, simply forget a person? And it's not like she wasn't missed. Her family had reported her missing weeks earlier. But for some reason, no one thought to check the elevator. The building management claimed they thought she had gone away for the holidays. Some neighbors said they noticed a strange odor, but assumed it came from somewhere else. It was a collective failure. One of those moments where every small oversight added up to something horrifying. The case became a media storm in China, sparking debates about public safety, the treatment of people with mental illness, and the failures of basic building management. People were angry, and they had every right to be. This wasn't just a tragic accident, it was an unnecessary death, a preventable one. It made people question, how could something like this happen? Could it happen anywhere else? Would we notice if someone we knew just disappeared? And as chilling as the story is, it's also heartbreaking, because we'll never know what her final days were like, what she thought, what she felt, whether she held on to hope, believing someone might come. The elevator, a symbol of routine and convenience, became her tomb. One moment she stepped in, maybe for groceries, or maybe to go visit someone. The next moment, everything changed. All because 2 people failed to look inside before flipping a switch. It's a reminder of how fragile life is, how systems we trust, elevators, buildings, even neighbors, can fail us, and how sometimes, in the middle of a city filled with people, someone can vanish without a trace. The woman was eventually laid to rest, but her story lingers, not just as a horror story, but as a cautionary tale, a reminder to slow down, to double-check, to ask questions, and above all, to never assume. Because sometimes, what's behind closed doors is a tragedy waiting to be found.